Now I'll teach you a couple of Jain, Jainism, Jain texts, Jain Sutras to help you to cultivate uh, yourself towards enlightenment and perfection. Again, as I tell you, Buddhism and Jainism are technically the same teaching, some slight differences. Just like Christianity has Catholic and Protestant. Okay, Buddhism and Jainism are sister teachings. They are teachings about the same. They have a lot of, most of their ethics are just the same, identical ethics. Do no harm to living human beings. Do no harm to animals. Non-violence, ahimsa, should be your practice. They teach you about this. Don't do harm to living beings. This is the fundamental of the teachings of Gautama Siddhartha the Buddha and Lord Mahavira. Okay, Jainism, Buddhism, similar. Non-violence is a cardinal point in their teachings. And of course, the Buddha goes ahead to talk about life, the sufferings of life, and how human beings have to develop Four Noble Truths, foundational teaching, how you can develop to overcome life's sufferings. But ahimsa, non-violence, doing no harm to living things, human beings and animals, is central to both Buddhism and Jainism. That's the point. And so I'm going to go to try to help your meditation. So you have these food for thought, from which you can develop your, from which you can make progress, develop your Buddha mind while making progress, rapid progress I want you to make towards enlightenment. Enlightenment is easy. I'm sitting, just sitting. This is Zen. What I'm practicing is Zen. Zen is sitting meditation. So all I'm doing is try to prevent your mind from being distracted by giving you food for thought, just giving you ideas, so that when you go to practice meditation, you have ideas, you have food to eat, you have, you dwell on certain things, and then from there you develop your mind. It's easy to achieve enlightenment. When you go to your meditation, you sit with nothing to think about, then you get distracted. So this is why we provide you with teachings. See, when we provide you with teachings, that occupies your mind. You now understand what Buddha is saying, because I've translated the Dhammapada, which is the central teaching of the Buddha. Having translated the Dhammapada, now it's easy. So you start from Dhammapada. This is what Buddha says. You don't need Dhammapada to go to enlightenment. The Buddha himself will tell you, no, don't bother about my teachings. If they don't appeal to your mind, don't bother about it. Get away from suffering however you can. Just don't do harm to living beings. But you discover that you're still going to have to go back to find what the Buddha said. It's easier, right? I can say I'm going to stay alive without eating. No more food for today. I'm going to fast. Well, it's easier to eat, right, than not to eat. So, at the end of the day, yes, the Buddha doesn't compel anybody. You don't have to follow what he's saying. But you still find out you have to follow it. It's just easier to develop by following instructions. You don't need instructions. The Buddha sympathizes with human suffering. He feels human suffering. The Buddha is genuine. He wants human beings to get away from suffering. Guys, get away from this suffering state. But how do I get these guys to get away from suffering state? So he gives you ideas. The Buddha gives you ideas. Do this. Don't desire the whole world. You're going to get into too many battles like those folks. I'm not going to mention them, but the whole world knows who they are. They're almost causing world war now. So you see, because they have not learned the teachings of the Buddha. If those presidents, they're fighting each other, they had sat. Can you just imagine if they were students of the Buddha who had paid listening ear to the teachings of the Buddha? Those world wars or whatever wars they're fighting will not be going on now, because those folks will be thinking about what the Buddha has instructed. And then they will understand that you don't have to do harm to the other people, kill millions of people to live on this earth. We don't need to wipe out the whole world to survive here. We can live very happily and very comfortably while everybody lives, if we take the discipline of being instructed. When you refuse the instructions of the Buddha, the karma, the consequences is the consequences you find with those uninstructed people over there destroying themselves for no reason. This is very important to think about. They say, well, they are presidents of nations. Well, the Dalai Lama of Tibet is the temporal leader of Tibet. We have Buddha alive to prove the point. You can easily use the Dalai Lama to judge those other presidents who are fighting and killing themselves. The Dalai Lama protected the Tibetans. The life of the Tibetans was important to the Dalai Lama when Tibet, the land of Tibet, was invaded by communist China. I'm talking about a Buddhist leader, how a Buddhist leader leads his people. The Dalai Lama was thinking about the lives of the Tibetans. I don't want a single Tibetan to lose their lives. That's called compassion. The Dalai Lama is a compassionate Buddha. He thinks about people. I don't want people to lose their lives. Golden importance. That's the center of our teachings. That's what is called ahimsa. Non-violence is the cardinal teachings of Buddhism and Jainism. That's what we've been talking about since morning. Ahimsa is the cardinal. Lord Mahavira said that this is my religion, non-violence. The Dalai Lama, when Tibet was being invaded, was concerned about the life of every single Tibetan. I don't want a single Tibetan to lose his life. Cardinal to Buddhism and Jainism. Our friends over there, Judas Iscariot was not thinking about the life of Christ. Judas Iscariot didn't care. He went and betrayed Christ. He had Christ killed. Then he went and killed himself. Okay, we can't change the history books, but you need to understand them. The other folks fighting on the other side trying to cause world war, they call themselves Christians. They need to take instructions of Buddhism and Jainism. A president like the Dalai Lama who understands Buddhism is concerned about the life of Tibetans. A good leader must be concerned not about property, not about how we seize properties and take cities and states, but the life of the human beings in my kingdom. Very important. What is important to us? The life of the human being in your kingdom or properties. You judge that, you apply your intelligence, you think about that. So the Buddha is concerned about human lives. There is nothing as important as the life of a human being in this world. The gold stones of the earth are not as important as the life of a human being. A human being is the most important thing on this planet, and the life of a human being is the most important thing. Once you've understood that, you become an enlightened Buddhist or Jain, like the Dalai Lama. The Dalai Lama sees that Tibet is invaded. The Dalai Lama is concerned about the life of Tibetans. So he evacuates, he takes all his monks and they leave their own home to protect the lives of the people. You will see leaders like the ones who are fighting over there saying, no, we must die for our life. Take the weapons and perish for the land. You see, now, these leaders this is what the Buddha calls greed, anger, and foolishness. They are the three fires that the Buddha says people need to guide themselves from. Guard yourselves from the fires of greed, anger, and foolishness. Human beings become greedy. Then when they are greedy, they become angry. And it's just foolishness. They have not listened to the teachings of the Buddha. In your kingdom, you can leave the land. That's what the Dalai Lama did. They left Tibet. It's okay to leave the land of a kingdom. But it's not okay to say, fight and die. Because the leader that says that is a leader that does not care about human beings' lives. The leader cares more about gold and silver than human beings' lives. What kind of judgment is that? I care about gold and silver, but not the lives of the human beings that live in you. What kind of leader is that? So that's not the kind of leader that the Buddha is. That's not the kind of leader that Mahavira is. This is very important for these teachings. Our teachings emphasize that the human being is the most important thing in this world, and the human life is the most important thing in this world. This is the teachings of Lord Mahavira, the teacher of the Jain, and the Buddha preserves that teaching perfectly. Human beings and human life is the most important thing in existence. Not gold, not silver, not properties, not land. A very good leader does not tell his people, go and throw away your lives. Go and throw away your lives into the garbage. For the land, what is land if human beings perish? So these are great things that we have to sit in the class of the Buddha and sit in the class of Lord Bhavira and contemplate very seriously. And understand that all those wars that those people who have not sat in the class of the Buddha are fighting, you need to understand that those are setbacks for humanity. The material success we have in this world today will double without wars. You read in the newspapers the wars they're fighting. This was over maybe 2 months ago when I read, or a month and a half ago, $100 billion has been destroyed. Property, value of property, I read it. $100 billion value. You see that? By angry people. A mass of angry humans who have no control. They've lost their control because they're angry. So you have to understand what Buddha is teaching. We don't want to do those. There should be no anger amongst the human beings that leads to the destruction of properties and the destruction of human lives is absolutely unnecessary. This is the reason why, if you believe in this course, we need to spread the teachings of the Buddha and the teachings of Mahavira, the Buddhism and the Jainism across the globe. We need to let people have the opportunity to come and listen to these teachings, because when they do, when anybody has heard these teachings, they will put the value on human beings first. Your life and my life is the most important thing on the earth. We should not trade gold and silver for our lives. You hear people, leaders say, fight for the gold and die for the gold. Fight for the silver and die for the silver. No, these are uninstructed. These folks have not been to the class of the Buddha and of Mahavira. When you have learned Buddhism, it's called penny wise, pound foolish. A stupid person is picking up pennies. He sees pennies in the city. He said, "Penny, look at pennies, pennies." So he's picking up the pennies, 1 cent, 2 cents. And for each pennies, dollars are falling out of his pockets. That's what the proverb calls penny wise, pound foolish. You're picking up things of much less value and things of much greater value. You are losing things of much greater. All those human beings, millions of human beings that are slaughtered in the wars, only God knows the kind of computers they might have designed, the kind of rockets, science, technologies at its peak. I'm teaching you through science and technological means. Somebody invented it. Suppose that person was killed in a war. We need to preserve human lives, because the human genius is so great that I'm using it to instruct you right now. You are in a remote country, distant country, probably not United States. But a human being has invented this media from which you learn it. Suppose he was killed in a war. Right? So we need to value human lives and understand that the most important thing we have in this world is human life. This is the teaching of the Buddha and Lord Bhavira. This is the summary of Buddhism and Jainism. Ahimsa. Everything to preserve the human lives as much as possible. Once you understand that, we can quickly move through the next teachings. These are food for thought. All these things I'm doing is to help you to develop meditation. So that, you see, when you sit in a study, you see I'm sitting in my study. This is where I practice my meditation. You sit in a study quietly, you can practice your meditation, you can contemplate these things, you can take yourself to your best self. A human being that achieves anything on this planet without doing harm to his neighbors. Do not do harm to your neighbors. Do not get bad karmas. You don't go to heaven by getting bad karmas. Do no harm to your neighbors. You can achieve all the gold you want on earth, millions of dollars if you want, without doing harm to your neighbors if you have been instructed by the Buddha, if you have been instructed by Mahavira. This is my teaching. So when you go to sit in your quiet study and you sit down quietly, you do your yoga, you calm your mind, you still your mind, you discipline your mind, and you begin your meditation, you now understand how you can develop yourself and live the best possible life you can live, achieve the beauty and everything you want to achieve on earth without doing harm to human beings or even animals, as the Buddha and Mahavira rightly put it. Okay, this is called the houseless monk or nun, monastic, as I said before. Anytime I say monk, always think of nun. It's male and female, it applies to both. So this particular sutra from our great teacher, Lord Mahavira, is called the houseless monk. Learn from me, learn from me, learn from me, says, with attentive minds, the road shown by the wise ones, which leads a monk or nun, a monastic, who follows it to the end of all misery. Giving up the life in a house and taking pravragya, a sage should know and renounce those attachments which take hold of men. A restrained monk should abstain from killing. You do just hear what the teachers say. Okay? This is Lord Mahavira now teaching. Buddha says the same thing. A restrained monk or nun should abstain from killing, lying, stealing, carnal intercourse, from desire, love, and greed. I want you to understand again, these are perfected teachings. You to walk towards them, climb the ladder to the 10th floor. Don't jump to the 10th floor. If you try to jump to the 10th floor, you break your legs. Just walk steadily. Okay? From elementary school to middle school, from middle school to high school, from high school to college, from college to grad school, from grad school to PhD and postdoctoral studies. So you just begin to develop yourself gradually until you come to your perfect self and you live a perfect life, the best life you ever wanted to live. Okay? I'm going to the 4th verse. Even in his thoughts, a monk or nun should not long for a pleasant painted house filled with the fragrance of garlands and frankincense, secured by doors and decorated with a white sailing cloth. For in such a dwelling, verse 5, a monk or nun will find it difficult to prevent his senses from increased desire and passion. Verse 6, he should be content to live on a burial place, if possible, in a deserted house, below a tree, in solitude, or in a place which has been prepared for the sake of somebody else. Verse 7, a well-controlled monk or nun, monastic, should live in a pure place which is not too much crowded and where no women live or no men live, in the case of, opposite sex. He should not build a house, nor cause others to erect one, for many living beings, both movable and immovable, both subtle and gross, are seen to be killed when a house is being built. Therefore, a monk or nun should abstain from building a house. These are the advanced things I'm talking about. These are really advanced. You have to walk steadily towards these, okay? Don't take a jump, you fall and you get wounded. So just gradually develop yourself towards understanding this perfect beauty, perfect heavenly teachings. The same holds good with the cooking of food and drink, or with one's causing them to be cooked. Out of compassion for living beings, one should not cook, nor cause another to cook. You just heard that. So these are advanced. These are advanced disciplines. You have to walk gradually. You're going to live on fruit, okay? But to live on fruit, you're not going to just turn off your gas cooker, turn off your electric cookers and start cooking right now. Right? You have to walk towards these things. It takes a while to get there, I promise you. I still cook. I still eat hot food. So I'm not quite there, but I'm walking towards getting there. Beings which live in water, corn, or in the earth and wood are destroyed in food and drink. You heard what he just said? Compassion for living things? I take it again, verse 11. Beings which live in water, corn, or in the earth and wood are destroyed in food and drink. Therefore, a monk or nun, a monastic, should cause nobody to cook. When you cook, you may burn these things. Even coronavirus, right? COVID virus, a living thing. Right? Do you want to kill them? Right? Good question. See, these are advanced teachings. You have to, God created viruses, right? But viruses do harm to us. What should our strategies be? Kill viruses? No. Self-defense. We need to defend ourselves protect yourself from them. Rub sanitizers, wear your face mask or something. Protect yourself, get away from them, but don't harm them. This will be Jainism teachings, right? They are microscopic organisms. They are living things created by God, but they are microscopic. You don't want to go to their area to go bomb them up, kill them up, blow up the coronaviruses, but you want to get away from them as much as possible. This Mavera, this again is advanced class. You cannot just take your PhD from kindergarten school. You have to go through elementary school, middle school, high school, okay, and graduate from college to go into grad school to work towards a PhD. So these are where coronavirus, what is coronavirus? They are viruses. What are viruses? They are living things created by God, right? So you don't want to attack them. You don't want to kill them. That's Jainism. Ahimsa, non-violence. If you can leave them to live on their own without coming to you to do harm to you, just like cockroaches or rats, let them go into their wild. Don't go into the forest to chase after rats and cockroaches, right? Let them be in their natural habitat. When they come to you to do harm to you, you may chase them away, but try not to harm them, okay? But if you harm them, let it be as a very last resort. You are still a developing person. So these are perfected teachings taught by perfected masters like Lord Mahavira, perfected in enlightenment. Lord Buddha, perfected in enlightenment. Give the respect to these great teachers. Understand that you are not exactly them, but you need to walk towards them. You need to walk towards perfection. This needs to be understood. There is nothing so dangerous as fire, for it spreads in all directions and is able to destroy many beings. One should therefore not light a fire. Brilliant teachings. Even in his thoughts, a monk should not long for gold and silver. Indifferent alike to dirt and gold, he abstains from buying and selling. Indifferent alike to dirt and gold, he abstains from buying and selling. Are you listening to these wonderful teachings? These are wonderful heavenly teachings coming from heavenly enlightened masters. So you just begin to walk towards this as a small, humble student with all humility. If he buys, he becomes a buyer. 14. If he sells, he becomes a merchant. A monk or nun, a monastic, is not to engage in buying and selling. We still need to develop to get there. A monk or nun, a monastic who is to live on alms, should beg and not buy. Beg and not buy is advanced. Buying and selling is a great sin. Buying and selling is a great sin. You need to work to understand that. Don't just take it at surface level. Develop great meditation, many years of spiritual practice, okay, disciplined practice for you to really be able to get to that level to master what these wonderful great teachers are talking about at a very advanced level. Buying and selling is a great sin, but to live on alms is benefiting. Verse 16, he should not collect his alms in small parts according to the Sutras, and he should, verse 16 reads, he should collect his alms in small parts according to the Sutras, and so as to avoid faults. He should collect his alms in small parts according to the Sutras, and so as to avoid faults. A monk or nun, a monastic, should contentedly go on his begging tour. Contentedly go on his begging tour, whether he gets alms or not, whether she gets alms or not. A great sage should not eat for the sake of the pleasant taste of the food, but for the sustenance of life. Not for the pleasant taste of the food, but for the sustenance of life. Being not dainty, nor eager for good fare, restraining his tongue and being without cupidity. Verse 18, even in his thoughts or her thoughts, he or she should not desire to be presented with flowers, to be offered a seat, to be eloquently greeted, or to be offered presents, or to get a magnificent welcome and treatment. He or she should meditate on true things only, committing no sins and having no property. Committing no sins and having no property, earthly things, material things. He or she should walk about careless of his body or her body till his or her end arrives. Brilliant teachings. For advanced students, you have to gradually develop. Don't jump. Just begin to walk towards it. Rejecting food when the time of his death arrives. Rejecting food when the time of her death arrives. His or her death. Rejecting food when the time of death arrives. Finally, and leaving the human body, he or she becomes his or her own master and is liberated from all misery. Finally, we have good news. We shall be liberated and free of all misery. Verse 21, final verse. Without property, without egoism, free from passions and the asravas, he or she obtains absolute knowledge, and reaches eternal beatitude. Thus I say, a word is enough for the wise. Now go sit quietly and humbly. Pay attention to yourself, to your advancement, making progress towards enlightenment, and practice the peaceful practice of meditation.